A call from my daughter, Bethany, turned sinister when I overheard her plotting to sell my home and put me in a nursing home, calling me a burden to her husband. They thought I was too confused to understand, already spending my money. My hand froze, but a silent resolve hardened. They were wrong. I wasn't dead yet. If you've ever felt underestimated, follow my story. Like, share, and tell me where you're listening from. The last morsel of meatloaf, savory and rich, vanished from Arthur's plate. He pushed the dish away, a sigh escaping his lips. It was a good meatloaf, almost as good as Eleanor used to make. Almost. These days, almost was as close as he ever got to her, to the warmth she brought into this too-quiet house. He often found himself drifting, sitting at the dining table long after dinner was done, simply staring at the empty chair opposite him, listening to the silence. It was a silence that had grown heavier with each passing year since Eleanor's death, pressing down on him, amplifying the echoes of what once was. He missed her laughter, her exasperated sarcasm, even the clatter of her pots and pans. Now there was just him, the hum of the refrigerator, and the distant ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Just as a familiar wave of loneliness threatened to engulf him, the shrill ring of the telephone cut through the quiet. Arthur startled, his hand fumbling for the receiver on the wall-mounted phone in the kitchen. "Hello?" he answered, his voice a little hoarse. "Dad, it's Bethany." His daughter's voice, bright and warm, resonated through the line from Phoenix. "How are you doing? Everything all right?" A genuine smile touched Arthur's lips. Bethany always had a knack for calling just when he needed it most. "Bethany, my dear, I'm fine, just finished dinner. Your old man is doing splendidly." He lied effortlessly. He wouldn't burden her with the truth of his solitude, the long, empty evenings, or the small scares that occasionally pricked at his composure. Only last week he'd left a burner on after making tea, forgetting it entirely until the faint smell of gas had roused him from a doze in his armchair. A momentary lapse, he'd told himself, nothing serious. But the fear, sharp and cold, had lingered. He certainly wasn't going to tell Bethany about that. "That's good to hear, Dad," Bethany said, though a hint of something he couldn't quite place, concern perhaps, or a subtle skepticism, underlined her words. "Are you sure? You know, I've been thinking maybe it's time we looked into someone checking in on you, just a few times a week, or perhaps a cleaning service." Arthur scoffed, a dismissive wave of his hand accompanying the sound, even though she couldn't see it. "Nonsense, sweetheart. I'm perfectly capable. My mind is sharp, my hands still work. I can clean my own house and look after myself just fine. No need for anyone to fuss over me." He tried to keep his tone light, but there was a firmness in his voice, a stubborn pride that refused to be questioned. He wouldn't be reduced to needing help. Not yet. Bethany sighed, a faint sound. "All right, Dad, if you say so. Just remember, David and I worry about you." There was a pause, then her voice shifted, becoming a little more hurried, more professional. "Listen, I've got to go. We have dinner with some potential investors, and David's waiting. Important meeting." "Of course, darling. Give my love to David. Don't work too hard." Arthur chuckled, feeling the usual pang of longing for more time with her, but understanding her busy life. "I will. Love you, Dad. Talk soon." "Love you too, Bethany." He smiled, feeling a little lighter after their brief chat. He brought the receiver down slowly, his thumb hovering over the button to disconnect the call. But just before he pressed it, he heard a faint rustling sound, like the phone being shifted on a table, and then Bethany's voice, muffled but distinctly audible. "David, do you see how he's deteriorating? He barely sounds coherent anymore." Arthur's hand froze inches from the button. His heart gave a sickening lurch. Deteriorating? He was just talking to her. Was she talking about him? David's voice, a low rumble, answered. "He sounded all right to me, honey, just a bit old." "No, you don't understand," Bethany insisted, her voice now clearer, no longer muffled, imbued with a sharp, almost theatrical concern that sent a chill down Arthur's spine. "He's forgetting things. He called me last week, confused about the time zone, and that incident with the stove burner. What if he burns the house down?" The forgotten burner. His private fear, whispered to a friend, now twisted and exaggerated, used as ammunition against him. Arthur's blood ran cold. He felt a searing heat of betrayal, a confusion so profound it almost buckled his knees. He gripped the phone tighter, his knuckles white. "That's exactly what I mean, Bethany." David's voice cut in, cold and dispassionate, like a surgeon discussing a case. "It's time for a nursing home. He's becoming a burden." The word hit Arthur like a physical blow, stripping him of breath. Burden. Was that all he was to them now? A problem to be managed? A weight to be shifted? He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to block out the words, but they echoed in the cavern of his mind. Then Bethany spoke again, her tone shifting, losing its performative concern and taking on a chillingly calculating edge. "The house is worth almost $1 million now, David. With the market in Phoenix, we could probably get 900,000, maybe even more." Arthur felt a wave of nausea. His house, Eleanor's house, their home. It was being discussed like a commodity, a number on a ledger. "Exactly," David agreed, his voice growing animated, almost gleeful. "We sell the house, put him somewhere decent, not too expensive, mind you. We still need to manage the equity. Then we take the rest for a down payment on that place in Boulder we liked. Imagine, Bethany, our dream house. No more struggling." "He has no idea we're planning this," Bethany chuckled, a short, sharp sound that sent shivers through Arthur's entire being. "The longer we wait, the more confused he'll get. It'll be easier to convince him." The phone slipped from Arthur's numb fingers, clattering softly against the countertop. He didn't even register the sound. He sank into the nearest kitchen chair, his gaze falling on a framed photograph on the shelf above the sink. It was Eleanor, radiant and smiling, her arm linked with his on their 50th anniversary. He stared at her face, her kind eyes, her gentle smile, and felt a profound emptiness. She would have never allowed this. She would have fiercely protected him. A cold, hard resolve began to settle in Arthur's chest, pushing past the shock and the pain. They thought he was a burden. They thought he was confused. They thought he had no idea. But he heard them, every word. They were already spending his money, already planning their new life in his grave. But he wasn't dead yet, not by a long shot. This, he knew, was just the beginning. Arthur remained at the kitchen chair, the metallic taste of betrayal bitter on his tongue. The phone lay on the counter like a discarded weapon. The house, usually a sanctuary of peaceful memories, now felt different, imbued with an oppressive stillness, as if the very walls had overheard Bethany's chilling pronouncements. The darkness, which before had been a comforting shroud, now felt vast and empty, swallowing him whole. He couldn't bring himself to move, the weight of their words pinning him down. Deteriorating, burden, sell the house, nursing home. Each word was a fresh cut. Finally, with a tremor running through his hands, Arthur reached out and flipped on the small table lamp in the adjacent living room. The soft glow pushed back the shadows, illuminating the familiar space. His eyes swept across the room. The worn armchair where Eleanor used to read. The antique mahogany desk where Bethany had done her homework. The faded floral wallpaper that Eleanor had picked out. Every object, every corner, held a memory, some sweet, some bittersweet. He could almost hear Bethany's childish laughter echoing from the years she played here, or Eleanor's gentle humming as she dusted the shelves. Now, these cherished recollections were tainted, smeared with the ugly truth he had just uncovered. He pushed himself up, his legs feeling heavy, and walked slowly back into the kitchen. His gaze fell upon the rarely opened filing cabinet tucked beside the refrigerator. He opened it, his fingers fumbling past utility bills and tax documents until they grasped a thick, overstuffed manila folder labeled Bethany. This folder was a testament to his life's work, a chronicle of his hopes and sacrifices. He pulled it out, placed it on the kitchen table, and sat down again, switching on the overhead light. Inside were years of receipts, bank statements, and meticulously kept records. He found the tuition receipts first, crinkled at the edges, spanning 4 years. $48,000 for Bethany's degree in marketing. He remembered the sting of the numbers, but also the pride. He'd worked double shifts at the factory, weekends at the hardware store, often coming home bone-tired, just to make sure she had every opportunity he hadn't. He'd seen it as an investment in her future, a loving gift. Just don't give her so much that she forgets to be grateful. Eleanor's voice, clear as if she were sitting right next to him, echoed in his mind. He'd brushed it off then, believing his daughter would never be anything but appreciative. Now the weight of Eleanor's prescient warning settled heavy in his gut. He should have listened. He flipped past more papers, his fingers tracing the figures. Then came the wedding receipts. $32,000 for one day. A lavish affair, far more than he and Eleanor had ever spent on their own modest ceremony. He'd picked up extra shifts, even a small consulting gig for a former colleague, all to pay for Bethany's dream wedding. He remembered her radiant face, framed by a veil of white lace as she had hugged him tight at the reception. "Daddy, you're the best father in the world," she'd whispered, her eyes glistening. "I'll never forget this. Never." But she had forgotten. The evidence was piling up, stark and undeniable. He found records of him co-signing her first car loan, then the second. There were notes he'd scribbled, recalling the hours he spent on the phone, leveraging his old contacts to help her land that first marketing job out of college. He had moved mountains for her, smoothed her path, and cushioned her falls. And she had forgotten it all. The bank statements were particularly painful. They showed the period when Bethany and David had moved back home after David lost his job during a market downturn. Arthur had welcomed them, opened his home, his heart. The statements showed the significant increase in utility bills, the extra hundreds of dollars spent on groceries each month. David, always so quick with a flattering word, had clapped him on the shoulder, calling him the most generous man in Colorado. Bethany had promised, again and again, that they would pay him back as soon as David found work. They never did. Instead, they had simply moved out one day, leaving behind a heartfelt card and a stack of unpaid bills that Arthur quietly settled. Even recently, his generosity had known no bounds. He'd paid for their elaborate anniversary dinner, a $200 extravagance at a fancy restaurant he couldn't afford for himself. And just last month, when Bethany's car needed a $3,000 repair, he hadn't hesitated, draining a significant portion of his emergency fund, money he'd saved for his own potential medical needs. He had told himself it was family. That's what family did. Arthur stood up, leaving the financial wreckage spread across the table. His feet carried him slowly, almost automatically, to his and Eleanor's bedroom. The room remained largely unchanged, a time capsule of their life together. Her scent, a faint trace of lavender, and something uniquely hers, still lingered in the air. He walked to her dresser, opening a small, ornate jewelry box. Beneath a tangle of necklaces and a few cherished brooches, he found it, the original deed to the house. The paper was yellowed with age, the legal script fading slightly. He studied it, seeing both their names, then only his name after she passed. This house, their home, was legally and unequivocally his. His alone. A slow, profound shift began within him. The raw, searing pain of betrayal was still there, a dull ache beneath his ribs. But beneath it, something harder was forming, something cold and sharp. It was a resolve, steeling his spine, sharpening his gaze. He wasn't a confused old man, a burden to be shuffled off to a nursing home. He was Arthur Finch, a man who had worked his entire life, provided for his family, and, in his old age, found himself underestimated and betrayed. He remembered Eleanor's final words to him, whispered from her hospital bed, her voice frail but firm. "Promise me, Arthur," she had pleaded, her hand clutching his. "Promise me you won't let them take advantage of you. Promise me you'll take care of yourself, truly take care of yourself, even if it means standing up to them." He hadn't fully understood her fears then, but he did now. With a determined hand, Arthur reached into the small drawer of his bedside table, beneath a stack of old letters. He pulled out a crisp business card, its embossed letters clearly stating, "Miles Harding, Estate Attorney." It was a card he'd received months ago from an old colleague who had insisted he get his affairs in order. He had tucked it away, thinking he'd never need it. Now he knew he did. He clutched the card, a silent promise forming on his lips, not just to Eleanor, but to himself. The morning sun, usually a welcome visitor, felt almost accusatory as it streamed through the windows of Arthur's home. He walked through the house, his steps quiet on the polished hardwood floors, but his perspective was irrevocably altered. He no longer saw the comfort of home, the sanctuary of memories. Instead, he saw what Bethany and David saw: square footage, market value, liquid assets. His life reduced to numbers on a balance sheet. The cold, analytical lens through which they viewed his existence now shadowed his own perception. He paused in the kitchen, his hand brushing the cool, smooth surface of the granite countertop. He remembered the day it was installed, Eleanor's delight as she ran her fingers over the sleek stone, her eyes sparkling with joy. He remembered Bethany, a toddler, taking her first wobbly steps across this very floor, her tiny hand gripping his finger. This countertop, this kitchen, held layers of their shared history, moments forged in love and laughter. He was the one who had spent 6 months of overtime to afford Eleanor that beautiful bay window in the living room, a place where she could read and watch the snowfall. He remembered constructing a miniature replica of their home, a perfect dollhouse for Bethany, painstakingly crafted with his own hands for her 7th birthday. He walked past the living room, a faint ache spreading in his chest, and then found himself standing at the doorway of what used to be Bethany's room. It was now a guest room, tidy and impersonal, but he could still conjure the image of a younger Bethany nestled in his arms as he rocked her to sleep, or the intense focus on her face as he patiently helped her with a difficult math problem. He had given her so much, poured his very being into her happiness and success. The master bedroom was the hardest to enter. Eleanor's side of the bed remained untouched, a silent monument to her presence. Her favorite shawl was still draped over the armchair, her collection of porcelain thimbles arranged neatly on the dresser. A faint trace of her lavender perfume still lingered in the air, a ghost of a scent that brought tears to his eyes. He remembered her dying wish, her plea for him not to let them take advantage. The memory now served as a sharp prod, a reminder of the task at hand. He went to the old chest at the foot of their bed, rummaging through its contents. Beneath faded photo albums and bundles of old letters, he found what he was looking for: a box of construction photos, images of a younger Arthur, strong and determined, digging the foundations of this house with his bare hands, laying bricks, framing walls. Eleanor, radiant and heavily pregnant with Bethany, standing beside him, a proud smile on her face. Financial records from those early years were tucked inside, proof of every penny saved, every sacrifice made to build this home. We'd built this house with our sweat, our sacrifice, our love, Arthur thought, his chest tightening. And now my daughter, the very person for whom we had built this sanctuary, wanted to sell it all and put me away. He felt a clarity he hadn't possessed in years. The indignation was still a raw wound, but it was overshadowed by a cold, calculated resolve. He retrieved Miles Harding's business card from his pocket. His hands, though slightly trembling, were steady as he dialed the number. "Miles Harding, attorney at law," a professional voice answered on the third ring. "Mr. Harding, my name is Arthur Finch. I believe a colleague of yours, Robert Davies, recommended you a few months ago. I need to schedule a consultation." Arthur's voice was firm, leaving no room for wavering. "Ah, Mr. Finch, yes, Robert mentioned you. Please, call me Miles. I'm so sorry to hear about Eleanor. She was a wonderful woman." Miles's voice was warm, sympathetic, a stark contrast to the cold calculation of the previous night. Arthur cut to the chase. "Thank you, Miles, but I'm calling about something urgent. It's about my daughter, Bethany, and her husband, David." He then recounted everything, his voice devoid of emotion as he laid bare the overheard conversation, the plans for his house, the talk of a nursing home. He described the casual way they spoke of him as a burden, as someone to be managed. Miles listened patiently, interjecting only with soft murmurs of understanding. When Arthur finished, there was a brief silence on the line. "Mr. Finch," Miles began, his tone serious, "I hear this far too often. Adult children often assume they know what's best for their aging parents, especially when valuable assets like a family home are involved." "But what about my rights?" Arthur asked, the anger finally beginning to crack through his carefully constructed composure. "Can they actually do this?" Miles's voice was firm. "Mr. Finch, let me be very clear. As long as you are of sound mind and body, and the house is solely in your name, which, based on your previous discussion with Robert, I believe it is, your daughter and son-in-law have absolutely no claim to your property. The house belongs to you, period. They cannot force you into a nursing home, nor can they sell your home against your will. A wave of relief, sharp and intense, washed over Arthur. He hadn't realized how much anxiety he'd been carrying until that very moment. So, he said, his voice a little clearer, if I wanted to sell it myself, you could put it on the market tomorrow if I chose to? Indeed, Miles confirmed, and the market in Denver is quite strong right now, should you decide to go that route. We handle all aspects of real estate transactions for our clients. Good, Arthur said, a new resolve hardening his voice. Because they think I'm helpless. Confused. They think they can manage me like a piece of property. They're wrong, Tom. The consultation was brief but clarifying. Arthur scheduled a follow-up meeting for later in the week and arranged to pay the consultation fee immediately. As he hung up the phone, a newfound sense of purpose coursed through him. The confusion was gone, replaced by an icy clarity. He was no longer a victim. He was a man with a plan. Moments later, his phone rang again. It was Bethany, her cheerful voice asking about his day. Arthur smiled, a slow, predatory curve of his lips. Everything's just fine, sweetheart, he said, his voice warm and reassuring. Just fine. The phone rang again, its insistent trill cutting through the quiet of Arthur's home. It was Bethany for the fourth time that day. He let it ring, watching the caller ID flash her name. He knew why she was calling, knew the elaborate charade she would put on. Let her wonder why her grateful old father wasn't jumping to answer her call, he thought, a flicker of satisfaction stirring within him. He waited until the sixth ring, then with a practiced slowness, picked up the receiver. Hello, he said, his voice imbued with a gentle confusion, as if he'd just been roused from a pleasant nap. Dad, there you are. I was getting worried, Bethany chirped, her voice oozing with artificial concern. How are you? Everything all right? Perfectly fine, sweetheart. Just enjoying a quiet afternoon. How's Phoenix? Still scorching hot? Arthur maintained his warm, grandfatherly tone, the persona of the slightly forgetful but content old man. Oh, you know Phoenix, she laughed, a brittle sound. But never mind that, Dad, I have some wonderful news. David and I have been planning something very special for you. Arthur gripped the phone tighter, his knuckles turning white. Here it came. He could almost hear David nodding in the background, a silent co-conspirator. Oh? And what's that, dear? He asked, feigning casual interest. Well, you've been working so hard your whole life, and now that Eleanor's gone, we just think you deserve a little pampering. So we want to treat you to a vacation. Bethany's voice was bright, sugary, a lovely resort with all the amenities, and of course, because we worry about you so much, it's a place that also happens to have excellent medical staff on hand, just in case. His jaw clenched so hard he thought his teeth might crack. A resort with medical staff. The euphemisms were sickeningly transparent. They meant a nursing home, a well-appointed prison, disguised as a luxury retreat. He fought the urge to shout, to rail against their duplicity. Instead, he forced a shaky, appreciative sigh. Oh, Bethany, that sounds lovely, sweetheart. Really, truly lovely. Then David's voice, a smooth baritone, cut in. That's right, Arthur. Bethany and I have already made all the arrangements. We're so excited for you. We were hoping you could be ready by next Friday. We'll be flying in on Thursday evening so we can pick you up first thing in the morning. Next Friday. So soon. They wanted him out of the house, permanently, within days. The audacity, the sheer cold-blooded planning, left Arthur breathless. Yes, Dad, Bethany added, her voice now filled with a false helpfulness. Just pack some clothes and personal items, you know, the essentials. Don't worry about anything else. The implication was clear. Leave everything behind, because you won't be coming back. A slow, dangerous smile spread across Arthur's face. Actually, Bethany, he said, his voice still warm but with a subtle, almost imperceptible edge. I have a surprise for you, too, when you get back. There was a moment of genuine surprise on Bethany's end. Oh, Dad, what kind of surprise? Her tone was no longer saccharine. It was tinged with curiosity, perhaps even a flicker of greed. Oh, it's something I've been working on since our last conversation, Arthur said, savoring the ambiguity. Something big. You'll be very surprised, I promise you. Oh, Dad, you're so sweet, Bethany gushed, Utterly convinced she was on the verge of receiving some new inheritance or family heirloom. "You really are the best." She called him sweet, he thought, as she planned to steal his life. The irony was a bitter pill, yet it fueled a cold resolve. After the call ended, Arthur's hands, which had been trembling with suppressed fury just moments before, felt steadier than they had in weeks. The path forward was clear. He walked to his study, a small room at the back of the house that Eleanor had always called his den. He opened his laptop, the screen flickering to life, illuminating his determined face. His fingers, surprisingly agile, typed into the search bar, "Real estate agents, Denver." He spent the next few hours immersed in research, a meticulous, methodical process that would have surprised Bethany and David. He compared agent profiles, read countless testimonials, filtering for those who specialized in quick sales, agents with a reputation for speed and efficiency. He wasn't looking for the highest bid, necessarily, but for the fastest transaction. Time was of the essence. His eyes scanned through various listings until one particular profile caught his attention. Mark Jenkins, 43, a picture of confident professionalism with a warm, approachable smile. His bio highlighted his aggressive marketing strategies and a track record of rapid property turnover. Arthur clicked on the testimonial section. One review stood out. "Mark Jenkins sold our house in 6 days. Cash buyer lined up within 48 hours. Smooth closing. Highly recommend." Another echoed on. "Professional, efficient, and delivered exactly what he promised. Our Denver home was off the market faster than we thought possible." This was his man. This was the person who would help him deliver his surprise. The game had begun, and Arthur found himself energized by the prospect. If you're enjoying this journey of unexpected turns and silent battles, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more gripping stories like mine. Your support helps us bring these tales to life. Arthur stared at Mark Jenkins's direct phone number on his laptop screen, the cursor blinking impatiently. This was it. This call would be the irreversible step, the commitment to a path from which there was no turning back. He took a deep breath, the scent of Eleanor's lingering perfume a faint comfort. His fingers, now steady with purpose, dialed the number. "Mark Jenkins Real Estate." "Mark speaking," a confident voice answered. "Mr. Jenkins, my name is Arthur Finch. I'm calling because I saw your profile online. I'm interested in selling my property, and I need to do so quickly." Arthur didn't mince words. "Quickly, you say?" Mark's voice held a note of keen interest. "That's my specialty, Mr. Finch. I've closed deals in as little as 10 days with cash buyers, provided the property is a good fit. Can you tell me a little about your house?" Arthur's heart hammered a frantic rhythm against his ribs. 10 days. That was even faster than he'd hoped. This was possible. "It's a 2-story, 3,400 square foot home, built in '99, located in the Cherry Creek area of Denver. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. I've maintained it meticulously over the years." Mark's interest visibly sharpened, even over the phone. "Cherry Creek is a prime location. Original owner, well-maintained. These are all premium selling points, Mr. Finch. Would you be available for a brief property assessment this afternoon?" "I can be there at, say, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock would be perfect," Arthur confirmed, a surge of adrenaline pushing through him. He spent the next 2 hours in a whirlwind of motion, cleaning the house obsessively. He dusted every surface, polished the hardwood floors until they gleamed, straightened every cushion, and ensured every window sparkled. He was preparing the house, not for visitors, but for an execution of Bethany and David's plans, a preemptive strike. As he worked, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the polished surface of a grandfather clock, a determined glint in his eyes, a set jaw. This wasn't the confused old man they imagined. Precisely at 3 o'clock, a sleek black SUV pulled into his driveway. Mark Jenkins emerged, looking exactly as he did in his online photo. A man in his early 40s, sharp suit, confident stride, with an open, friendly face that belied his aggressive business acumen. Arthur opened the door, offering a polite, if reserved, welcome. "Mr. Finch, a pleasure to meet you," Mark said, extending a hand. His handshake was firm. He stepped inside and his eyes immediately widened. He swept his gaze across the foyer, taking in the intricate crown molding that Arthur had painstakingly installed himself. The gleaming hardwood floors, the immaculate condition of everything. "Wow," he breathed. "This is exactly what I was hoping for. You weren't exaggerating about meticulously maintained." Arthur felt a familiar rhythm reassert itself. He was an engineer by trade, a man who built things, who took pride in craftsmanship. He found himself discussing his work, explaining the provenance of the 3/4-inch solid oak floors he'd installed in 2001, the custom granite countertops in the kitchen, and the upgraded insulation he'd added to reduce energy costs. He spoke of the house not as a sentimental relic, but as a well-engineered structure, a testament to quality and enduring value. Mark listened intently, nodding. "I rarely see properties maintained to this standard, Mr. Finch. Most homes of this age require significant updates." "I'm an engineer, Mr. Jenkins," Arthur replied, a hint of pride in his voice. "I believe in building things right at the first time and maintaining them properly." As Mark moved through the house, taking photos with his professional camera and jotting down measurements, he paused at the bay window in the living room. He ran a hand over the smooth wood frame. "Beautiful craftsmanship here. Custom build?" "Yes," Arthur said, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "For my wife, Eleanor. She loved to sit here and read." The memories were still bittersweet, but they no longer brought the same sting. Now they fueled his resolve. After a thorough tour, they settled in the living room. Mark opened his laptop, showing Arthur a series of comparable sales in the Cherry Creek area from the last 6 months. Properties similar to yours in size and age have been selling for anywhere between $850,000 and $920,000. Given the pristine condition and custom upgrades of your home, Mr. Finch, I'd estimate your property could comfortably fetch around $890,000, possibly more. Arthur was stunned. Almost $900,000. It was more than he had anticipated, far more than Bethany and David had calculated. The figure was staggering, a validation of a lifetime of hard work and careful stewardship. "Now, about that quick sale you mentioned," Mark continued, leaning forward. "I have an investment group, a consortium of high-net-worth individuals who have been looking for exactly this type of property for their portfolio. They pay cash, no financing contingencies, no lengthy appraisals. If we can get everything in order, we could be looking at a closing in as little as 10 business days. 10 business days. Arthur's mind raced. Bethany and David were flying back in 8 days. This was perfect. More than perfect. It was divine intervention. A sly, triumphant glint appeared in his eyes. The offer was almost too good to be true. A swift, uncomplicated cash sale for nearly $900,000. Arthur, ever the engineer, always looked for the hidden flaw, the catch. "Mark," he began, his voice laced with a healthy dose of skepticism, "what's the downside here? What's the catch for such a fast cash transaction?" Mark Jenkins smiled, a genuine, unpracticed expression that softened his professional demeanor. "No catch, Mr. Finch. Simply put, cash buyers eliminate all the usual delays. No loan applications to wait for, no appraisal contingencies that can derail a deal, no nervous banks to satisfy. An investment group like this knows what they want. They have the funds ready, and they move quickly when they find a property that perfectly fits their criteria. And your house, sir, is a perfect fit. Frankly, it's in better shape than most new construction I see these days." Arthur considered this. It made logical sense. Still, one more practical concern lingered. "And what about moving out? If it closes in 10 days, that's not much time." "Standard contract usually allows for a 30-day post-closing occupancy, Mr. Finch," Mark explained, "giving you ample time to transition. But with this group, they're quite flexible. We can negotiate that for you if you need more time. Their primary goal is acquisition. They're not in a rush to move in tomorrow. 30 days. Plenty of time." Arthur's mind raced, picturing Bethany's smug face, David's dismissive comments. Eleanor's warning echoed in his ears, a solemn reminder of his promise to her. This wasn't just about selling a house anymore. It was about reclaiming his dignity, about striking back at the betrayal. The decision solidified in his heart, cold and unyielding. "Let's do it, Mark," he said, his voice firm, unwavering. "Let's sell the house." Mark's professional mask slipped completely, revealing a wide, almost boyish grin of genuine excitement. "Excellent, Mr. Finch. You won't regret this." He immediately pulled out his phone. "I'm going to call the investment group right now. They usually respond quickly." Arthur listened as Mark spoke, his voice brimming with enthusiasm, detailing the property with glowing descriptions. Cherry Creek area, original owner, immaculate condition, custom features throughout. Yes, the 3/4 inch solid oak floors, the granite, the crown molding. It's a jewel. Mark hung up, beaming. "They want to move forward immediately. I can have the initial contracts drawn up and ready for your review by tomorrow morning." "How does 9 o'clock sound?" "9 o'clock sharp," Arthur agreed, a thrill of anticipation running through him. After Mark left, Arthur stood in the quiet living room, the house no longer feeling like a commodity, but a weapon. There was no sadness, no regret, only a fierce, almost vengeful anticipation for what was to come. The next morning, true to his word, Mark arrived promptly at 9, accompanied by a notary public. He carried a leather briefcase, a stack of documents, and thoughtfully, a thermos of freshly brewed coffee. "Good morning, Mr. Finch. Ready to make this official?" Mark asked, his energy infectious. Arthur nodded, accepting a steaming mug of coffee. They settled at the dining room table, a place where countless family meals had been shared. Now it was the setting for a different kind of family business. Mark laid out the contracts, explaining each section with meticulous detail. Arthur, an engineer by nature, read every line carefully, his eyes scanning for any hidden clauses or ambiguities. The sale price was indeed $890,000. The terms were clear: a cash purchase with a closing date set for 10 business days from the signing. The minimal contingencies included a standard home inspection, which Mark assured him would be a formality given the house's condition. The agreement also specified the 30-day post-closing occupancy, which could be extended if necessary. The notary, a polite woman named Sarah, guided Arthur through the signing process, explaining the legal implications of each document. As he put pen to paper, signing his name with a steady hand, Arthur almost laughed aloud. Peace of mind, they said. The only peace of mind he'd have would come from seeing Bethany and David's faces when they discovered what their burden had done. He imagined their shock, their furious disbelief. That, he realized, would be more satisfying than any financial gain. With his final signature, the process was officially in motion. The house was sold. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Days 1 through 3 were filled with paperwork, a quick professional home inspection, and a final walkthrough by the investors' team. Arthur watched them move through his home, efficient and businesslike. He overheard snippets of their conversations, praising the structural integrity, the custom finishes, the remarkable workmanship. They spoke of him in the past tense as if he were already gone, already irrelevant, a mere phantom presence. It only solidified his resolve. They assumed he had moved on, that their plans were well underway. But the true surprise was still waiting in the wings. The days that followed the initial agreement flew by, a blur of activity that transformed Arthur from a grieving widower into a man with a secret mission. Days 4 through 6 were consumed by meticulous planning. He spent hours on his laptop researching senior living communities. He wasn't looking for a nursing home, but for an apartment complex that offered independence, yet also the amenities he and Eleanor had once wistfully discussed: a community garden, fitness classes, perhaps even a book club. He found Sunset Manor Apartments in the Highlands, a vibrant community that looked promising. It had a waiting list, but Arthur, armed with his newly acquired wealth, knew he could likely jump it with the right incentive. Concurrently, he began the practical, albeit emotionally charged task of deciding what to keep and what to leave behind. He called several local storage facilities, arranging for a unit large enough to hold the most precious artifacts of his life: Eleanor's delicate jewelry, the worn photo albums filled with their shared history, her antique china, and his collection of engineering texts. Everything else, the furniture, the appliances, the general household items, these were just things. They had served their purpose, facilitated their life here, but they weren't Eleanor. He would leave them for the new owners, a silent offering of a well-loved home. As days 7 through 9 dawned, Arthur felt a strange new confidence bloom within him. Each morning he awoke with a sense of purpose, a quiet determination that he hadn't experienced since Eleanor's passing. He felt closer to true freedom, closer to delivering the unforgettable lesson Bethany and David so desperately needed. He imagined the look on their faces, and a grim smile touched his lips. He was sharper than they imagined. His neighbor, Miss Henderson, a woman who missed nothing that happened on their quiet street, eventually noticed the increased activity, the measuring, the quiet comings and goings of the inspectors. She approached him one afternoon, a quizzical expression on her face. "Arthur, dear, what's all this commotion? Are you finally getting that new roof you talked about?" Arthur, ever the gentleman, offered a partial truth. "Just some work being done, Ms. Henderson. Nothing to worry your pretty head about. A few upgrades, you know." He offered a reassuring smile, and she, satisfied for now, retreated. On day 8, Mark called with the final confirmation. His voice was bright, almost celebratory. "Everything's on track for tomorrow's closing, Mr. Finch. The wire transfer will be completed the same day. You're all set." That night, Arthur packed a single, modest suitcase, a few changes of clothes, his toiletries, Eleanor's photo, and a cherished leather-bound journal. He was ready for anything, ready to embark on this new, unplanned chapter. He stood before Eleanor's photograph, his gaze lingering on her smiling face. "I hope you understand what I'm doing, my love," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm taking care of myself, just like you asked." Friday morning arrived, crisp and bright. Arthur, dressed in his best navy suit, a relic from his working days, now imbued with a new sense of power. At precisely 10 o'clock a.m., he met Mark and the legal team at the title company's office. The room was hushed, the atmosphere one of professional gravity. Arthur sat at the polished conference table, feeling strangely detached, as if he were observing the scene rather than participating in it. He signed document after document. The deed transfer, formally ceding ownership of the home he had built with his own hands, the settlement statement, detailing the financial transactions, the final acknowledgement of all terms. Each signature was a decisive stroke, a cutting of ties. Then came the moment of truth. Mark slid a piece of paper across the table. "Here it is, Mr. Finch. Wire transfer confirmation. $890,000 less closing costs has been deposited to your account." Arthur stared at the numbers, his heart thrumming. The exact amount, almost to the penny, that Bethany and David had fantasized about. More money than they had dreamed their burden could access. A quiet, almost savage satisfaction settled deep within him. Afterward, Mark walked him to his truck, a genuine warmth in his voice. "You made the right choice, Mr. Finch. Sometimes a fresh start is exactly what we need, no matter our age." Arthur nodded, offering a small, knowing smile. "Indeed, Mark, indeed." He drove home, not with a sense of nostalgia or sadness, but with an exhilarating feeling of liberation. He looked at the house bathed in the afternoon sun, no longer his. It was just a building now, a vessel that had served its purpose. Bethany and David were due back in 3 days. Instead of finding their confused, docile father awaiting his forced vacation, they were going to find an empty house and a lesson they'd never forget. He pulled out his phone, his fingers steady as he dialed the next number in his carefully constructed plan. Everything was working out even better than he had hoped. Arthur sat in his truck, parked a comfortable distance down the street, staring at what was no longer his home. The house looked the same, bathed in the same afternoon sun, yet it was fundamentally altered. It now belonged to strangers. He, Arthur, had a 30-day grace period, a contractual right to remain, but emotionally he was already gone. The connection was severed, cut clean. He shifted the truck into drive, feeling a curious blend of lightness and a faint, lingering ache. His first stop was a bustling Starbucks. Inside, amidst the chatter and the aroma of coffee, he called directory assistance. "I need a reputable, 24-hour locksmith," he requested, his voice steady. Within minutes, he had a number. He dialed, keeping his tone urgent yet calm. "I need all my door locks changed today. It's imperative. It's an emergency of sorts." The locksmith, Leo, promised to be there within the hour. Back at the house, Arthur waited. Henderson, his ever-observant neighbor, was out watering her roses. He gave her a polite wave, a carefully constructed smile on his face. He felt the weight of his lies, the intricate web of deception he was weaving, but he pushed it down. This wasn't malice, it was self-preservation, a hard-won lesson. Leo, a burly man in his 50s with kind eyes, arrived promptly. Arthur greeted him at the door. "Thanks for coming so quickly, Leo. It's a bit of an unusual situation. New ownership, you see. Just want to be better safe than sorry. Make sure only the right people have access." Leo nodded understandingly. "Completely understand, sir. Happens all the time." He went to work, his tools clinking softly as he skillfully removed the old brass locks Arthur had installed himself years ago. He whistled appreciatively. "These are good locks, solid. Somebody knew what they were doing." "That was me," Arthur stated, a faint, wry smile touching his lips. The new silver locks clicked into place with a definitive mechanical sound, starkly different from the familiar feel of the old ones. Leo handed Arthur 3 gleaming copies of the new keys. They felt foreign in his palm, cold and heavy, symbols of a stark new reality. Arthur paid Leo $450 in cash, ensuring there was no electronic trail, no record of the transaction. "Much obliged, Leo," he said, tucking the keys into his pocket. Then came the hardest part, the actual physical act of disengaging from 25 years of life in this home. He moved methodically, almost clinically, through the rooms. Eleanor's small, ornate jewelry box was carefully placed in his overnight bag. Their wedding photos, a tangible link to their youthful vows, joined it. He packed Eleanor's well-worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, his framed engineering certificates, and her treasured recipe book, full of handwritten notes and stains. These were the true essentials, the fragments of his past that would anchor him in his future. He left almost everything else. The heavy antique furniture, the sprawling bookshelves filled with books, the remaining photo albums that were too large to carry, even Eleanor's clothes still hanging in the closet. The furniture that told their story, he thought, would have to stay, a silent narrative for the new occupants. It was a wrenching process, but his resolve held firm. His next call was to Sunset Manor Apartments. He spoke to the property manager, Ms. Lee, explaining his urgent need for immediate occupancy. With a little persuasion and the mention of paying a few months' rent up front, he secured a furnished 1-bedroom unit month to month. He drove directly there, met Ms. Lee, signed the lease, and paid nearly $3,000 in cash for the first month's rent and deposit. Again, no paper trail. Returning to Maple Street, he loaded his few possessions into his truck. As he did so, he caught Ms. Henderson watching him from her porch, a look of bewildered concern on her face. He waved again, feeling the invisible weight of severed relationships, the unspoken goodbyes to a life he was leaving behind. He imagined her gossiping to the other neighbors, piecing together fragments of his sudden departure. Let them wonder. He took one last walk through the now empty rooms of the house. The echoes of his footsteps were stark in the quiet. He paused in the master bedroom, gazing at Eleanor's untouched side of the bed. "I'm sorry, honey," he whispered, his voice catching. "But you'd understand, wouldn't you?" He knew she would. She had urged him to protect himself. With a final, decisive click, he locked the new silver locks, the sound resonating through the still air. He didn't look back as he drove away from Maple Street, leaving behind the house, the memories, and the life he had built. He was driving toward a new beginning, armed with a fortune and a plan. At his new, modest apartment, he immediately reached for his phone. The final phase of his plan required one more call. The trap was set. Now he just had to wait for it to spring. The final phase of Arthur's plan began. Back in his new apartment, he opened his laptop, the screen a glowing portal to his future. He needed a new bank, a secure place for his nearly $900,000. After careful research, prioritizing personal service and discretion, he settled on Colorado Community Bank. He called, requesting to speak with someone in their private banking division. He was connected to Julian Vance, a man whose calm, professional demeanor instantly put Arthur at ease. They arranged a consultation for Monday morning. The weekend passed in a blur of unfamiliarity. He unpacked his few essentials, stocked his small refrigerator with groceries for one, and explored his new neighborhood. He discovered a cozy coffee shop, Brews and Views, where Chloe the barista quickly recognized his usual order and offered a friendly smile. These small interactions were a balm to his soul, a taste of independent life without the shadow of familial obligation. Monday morning, Arthur met Julian Vance. The bank's private banking offices were discreet, luxurious, a world away from the factory floor where Arthur had spent his life. He opened a premium account, initiating the transfer of funds from the sale of his home. Julian assured him the process would be swift and secure. By Wednesday afternoon, Julian confirmed the funds had cleared. Arthur felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. The nearly $900,000 was no longer just a number. It was tangible proof of his freedom, a symbol of being truly in control of his own destiny. That evening, Arthur ordered a wireless mini camera disguised as a phone charger, selecting expedited delivery for Thursday. While he waited for it to arrive, he drafted the note, meticulously choosing each word. He wanted it to be dignified, but devastating. Loving, but final. He revised it several times, ensuring it perfectly conveyed his message. The final version read, "Dear Bethany and David, if you're reading this, it means my plan worked perfectly. I overheard your phone conversation last week, the one where you discussed my deterioration and becoming a burden. I heard your plans to sell my home, to put me in a nursing home, and to use my life's work to fund your dream house. Let me assure you, I am neither deteriorating nor a burden. The house has been sold for $890,000 cash. The money is safely in my new bank account. Your belongings, including those suitcases you left for your vacation, have been packed by a professional moving company and are being stored at Denver Moving and Storage, payable at your expense. I gave you everything I had for 42 years, my love, my time, my money, my home. You repaid me by planning to warehouse me so you could steal my life's work. I hope the lesson was worth the content. Love, Dad." Thursday, the camera arrived. Arthur carefully tested it, ensuring it captured a clear, wide-angle view. Then, with a quiet resolve, he drove back to his former house, parking discreetly in the garage, using the temporary access granted by the sale. Inside, he saw Bethany and David's suitcases sitting by the front door, along with a small stack of mail. They were truly expecting to pick him up and send him away. He positioned the camera charger in the entryway, perfectly angled to capture anyone entering the house. He then taped the crisp white envelope containing his note to the inside of the front door, just above the deadbolt, impossible to miss. He retrieved Eleanor's photo from his bag, holding it gently. "It's done, sweetheart," he whispered, a tear escaping his eye. Justice served. He locked the newly changed locks and drove away, arming the camera remotely as he exited Maple Street for the last time. Friday, 5:15 p.m. His phone buzzed. A motion detection alert from the camera. Arthur's heart gave a jolt. He opened the app. David's black SUV pulled into the driveway. Arthur watched, a knot of anticipation tightening in his stomach. Bethany emerged first, her face flushed from the flight, her key already in hand. She tried the lock. Again and again. Her brow furrowed in frustration. David joined her, trying his key, then moving to the back door, then the garage. "Someone changed these locks," he announced, his voice tight with irritation. Bethany pulled out her phone, dialing Arthur's disconnected landline. When it didn't connect, her eyes widened. "He doesn't have a cell phone?" she whispered, a new note of fear cracking through her voice. David, ever resourceful, found an unlocked kitchen window. With a grunt, he pushed it open. Bethany, surprisingly agile, climbed through. A moment later, the front door swung open from the inside. They stepped into the empty foyer, looking around in confusion. Their eyes landed on the white envelope taped to the door. Bethany reached for it, her hand trembling. As she read, her face drained of color. He sold the house," she shrieked, the note fluttering from her grasp. David snatched it up, his eyes scanning the words. "That manipulative old bastard," he snarled, crumpling the paper. "He was playing us the whole time." Bethany burst into tears. $890,000. He kept it all. That money was supposed to be our future. "This is your father, Bethany," David retorted, his own anger boiling over. "You should have handled this better. I told you to get that power of attorney months ago." Their voices escalated, echoing through the empty house. Their argument revealed the full extent of their desperation. David had not only lost his job, but his professional license had been revoked, making him virtually unemployable in his field. Bethany's marketing salary barely covered their car payments and Phoenix rent. The house, and Arthur's supposed inheritance, was their last hope. Through her sobs, Bethany whispered, "How could he be so cruel?" David, his face a mask of bitter realization, stared at the crumpled note. "The same way you were cruel when you called him a burden, Bethany. The old man was smarter than both of us." Arthur watched, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. He had seen enough. He turned off the camera, a sense of profound closure settling over him. He walked to his small kitchen, poured himself a glass of Eleanor's favorite Bordeaux, and raised it in a silent toast. "To you, my love," he whispered. Justice served. He looked at his phone, seeing a flurry of missed calls and frantic texts from Bethany. He simply deleted them, then powered off the device. He walked to the window, gazing out at the twinkling lights of the Denver skyline. He was completely free. He was no longer anyone's burden. He was his own man again, with his own money, his own choices, and his own future stretching out before him, clear and unencumbered.